the journey at LAWA is an interesting, complicated, little bit of a soap opera in a way. The journey started approximately 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, where we started an implementation under a previous deputy executive director. And the initial implementation of Maximo went south very quickly. And one of the reasons is that the team that was performing the implementation, which was very talented, however, they did not completely understand what my goal was, what my needs were, and what the users of Maximo's needs were and expectations were. So it became sort of a jam down where we know better and we will tell you what to think and what you should do. And that met with a considerable amount of resistance. And so the people who are actually implementing this work, this program on the part of LAWA, they were floundering. And so a lot of time, effort, energy, and money was lost. And the program was on the rocks. And it was about ready to be canceled because there was no deliverables that were tangible. And it was expensive. And the money was needed elsewhere for our capital program. So the program, I was informed the program was going to come to an end. And that would leave pretty much this division with nothing to work with. We did have a maintenance management system called MainSaver, but when Maximo came to life here at the airport, MainSaver was no longer supported, and any of the updates and care and feeding of MainSaver was canceled. So we had nothing. We were literally having the shops work off Excel spreadsheets and Outlook to do their maintenance work. So cutting to the chase, I was able to convince the CEO and the CFO that we needed an asset management program, not just an airport maintenance management system, but an asset management program. And fortunately for LAWA, the CEO and the CFO at the time agreed that that was something we needed to do. However, they wanted to be ensured that this money would not be squandered and there would be something that would be usable at the end of the day. And so I made that commitment to them. And we brought in a new team, including Jennifer. And we sat down and we learned the mistakes that had been made previously and learned what we needed to do moving forward to ensure those mistakes were not repeated and that we achieved the buy-in from the staff that we needed in order to make this program successful. So my biggest takeaway from this whole exercise is the program needs a champion. It can't be delegated down to shop level or mid-level manager level. It needs to be championed at the highest level within the organization. There needs to be a profound sense of ownership within that executive. I think there needs to be an accountability, not only with the executive, but also with the direct reports who are tasked with implementing this program and ensuring that the program is successful. And you also have to spend an awful lot of time convincing the shop supervisors and staff that after they've done all this work, all this labor, all this effort, that there's something in it for them. Otherwise, they just don't see it because they won't realize the benefits of an asset management program for years. It takes that long in order for the system to mature. And that's a tough load to pull. Because the shop supervisors, at least in this organization, are very, very busy. Not only did they have an existing airport to maintain, but we were bringing on, spending a little over $200 million a month on capital improvement program at the time. And so they were very, very busy, not only maintaining what they had, but also absorbing and onboarding the new equipment. So one of the items that I think really helped lift the veil or the curtain for many of the supervisors is when we started onboarding assets. when we required the contractor to provide us with the nameplate info, and we were able to, via the Maximo team and the consultants, develop a facilities maintenance program, management program at LAWA, and show the shops that, okay, now you're going to know exactly what you own. You're going to know its birth date. You're going to know its blood type. You're going to know its genealogy, and you're going to know everything you need to know about it. And so we can plan for the predictive replacement of that item and the cost. And we were able to project that cost out from the useful life of the asset. And so we now were able to show the shop supervisors, okay, this asset costs $500,000 today, but 20 years from now, when it has to be replaced, it's going to be $4 million with just inflation and all the enabling work necessary in order to change that asset. So it started to lift. It started to lift, and we got more and more buy-in from some of the shop supervisors. Now, it also required a pretty heavy hand from somebody on this panel to ensure that the people did take care of their knitting and paid attention and understood that at the manager level, that they were held accountable to do all they could to ensure that this program was successful, and that the shops understood it was successful, and they didn't just beat people over the head with it, but they actually sat down and encouraged them and sold the program, educated the shops, supervisors, and the mid-level managers on how important this was to LAWA long-term. So that's my long roundabout way. Here we are with an asset management program at LAWA. We have just completed phase one, our CIP, Capital Improvement Program 1, for a little over $14 billion. We're just starting out on CIP 2, which is be another $13 billion. And we have completed we're starting our third version of our asset renewal program, where we looked at the existing assets and did a 5 and a 10-year look ahead and projected what would need to be replaced in what year and what would that cost be. And currently we have a 10-year program with a little over $500 million identified to be spent over that 10-year program. And I want to tell you, when that report was dropped on the CFO's and the CEO's desk, they pretty much had a heart attack, a virtual heart attack, when they saw that all this money had been spent on new, but there was still this huge lift on the existing. And it took a little bit of convincing for them to understand that we have to do more than just build shiny things. We have an obligation as managers to maximize the useful life of the equipment, and to ensure that the workers, the people who work on that equipment, they're not completely reactionary. We want to be as proactive as we possibly can, and let the shops, the workers, the actual people who are doing the physical work, that we care, that it's not just a bullwhip and a cattle prod approach, is we want to make sure they have the staff resources that they need to be successful. And that's not easy to do, and it requires consistency and sometimes some careful thought. But at least at LAWA, it seems to have worked. We started out with a crawl, walk, run phase. We're not crawling, we're walking. We've fallen down a couple of times, but we get back up and we're doing a little bit better every year. COVID really was a kick in the stomach to us. We lost a lot of institutional knowledge. We lost a tremendous amount of revenue. And so we've had to not necessarily pause, but we've had a downshift our progress. However, we seem to be able to obtain the resources we need to accelerate our program. So I think we're in a pretty good shape considering where we were in 2020.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. That's an excellent overview and real great insights. I mean, a lot of what you're talking about is like the culture change that needs to happen, and culture change doesn't happen within an organization, let alone an organization as complex as LAWA, unless there is that champion. So yeah, those are really good insights and something cool. I mean, Rick kind of just skimmed over it, but what they're able to do now at LAWA is they can use their Maximo system to start to do these 5 and 10-year projections on renewal of existing infrastructure to layer into the CIP. So that sounds like such a simple thing, but it's not. And they're doing it now. It's part of their rigor that they perform. And that's major. I mean, they have data to tell the story. It's not just people saying, we know the infrastructure is crumbling. They have the data that support it. And that's a huge undertaking there at Wawa. So hats off to you. And then the other piece of it is Rick talked a lot about maintenance. And, I know sometimes, maintenance is talked about, like maintenance and asset management, kind of the same thing. And we all know that maintenance is just one component of a broader asset management program, but it's such a critical component, because if you don't have the maintenance folks on board, they're the ones that are touching the equipment and collecting the data that's ultimately used for these CIPs. So that buy-in and that what's in it for me, and, telling the story is so key. And so it took a while at LAX, but they're doing it. So congratulations, Rick, and thanks for sharing that.